Why did I not realize that it was so... Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel where we take old clothes and make it fashion. Today we're gonna make another purse, pouch, zipper bag. I was shopping, like window shopping with my mom. This kind of shop where moms tend to look at the price tag of every single garment and cry it out loud. Personally offended by what's written on it. In the 400s for a vegan leather bag, which don't be fooled is 100% plastic, was a little on the offensive side for me too. So I was like, I can do this. So let's dissect this coat. Start with making the tubes and then see how much we have. Cutting along the seams, getting the pieces out as big as possible. You may seam rip this too, but honestly, why would you? Then we end up with this table full of fabric, which looks like a lot, but we have to think in usable pieces here. Some of the pieces are really small, preferably without having to patchwork our mental health away. Is it enough? We will find out soon, but not today, because let's wash this first, guys. Well. That is almost clean. Get off those unnecessary reflector things. That's still really, really dirty. Please leave your washing tips in the comments because why do I never get anything clean? I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. We're so limited in our fabric. We want to be a little bit strategic on how we're gonna use it. I'm trying to guesstimate which length of tube I could possibly get enough out of the fabric. Quickly realizing I probably need to use the sleeves too. So I decide the width of the sleeve, though a little bit short, is gonna be the length I have to choose. For the width, I'm gonna go for about 8 centimeters. Chop. And then when all pieces are of the same length, more or less, cut the exact same, more or less exact same pieces out of the kilted lining. Basically using the outer fabric I just cut as the pattern piece for the inside. Using my cutting mat to straighten the line. This is optional, doesn't have to be a cutting mat. Though that's more if you can't find a ruler, like none of the 5, for God's sake. You're done cutting all the filling. Use the scraps to make a Santa Claus beard. That's optional. I mean, you only live once, people. Guess how long it took me to turn this thing inside out? Too long. So at first I thought it would be a good idea to just sandwich the fabrics together like this. Fold the good side on the good side, and then close it on the sewing machine. However, what do you think? Was it a good idea? No, it was not a good idea. Problem not being the sewing, but turning the narrow tube with filling inside out again. And I tried the safety pin method, which didn't work. Of course, I went in with a magic stick. I don't know if it's because it's bent now, but it was also not working. It was very frustrating. If you don't know what a magic stick is, by the way, shame on you. Educate yourself. Probably subscribe. But then there was one more mysterious method as suggested by this wonderful phenomenon called the internet. And I know what you're thinking. Is this one simple string really capable of changing people's lives? Round a pattern piece, round a pattern piece. Sandwich the outer fabric, the beautiful yellow stained coat fabric, inner, beautiful padding, smooth sides on that side. That will sew more easily. So this shoelace in horizontally at the top, fold it over like a carton. You can't eat it. Fingers crossed. Doing a little bit less seam allowance than 1 centimeter. It might make it a little easier to turn it inside out. Hopefully. Got out the pins. Now it's time for silence in the audience.
A few inches later.
Come on, guys.
Saliva everywhere! Patience is not on fleek today. I think the fabric is not gliding well. Can we help with some magic? Desperation makes people do crazy things. Pulling with the cord, pushing with the stick. Was this as promised by this wonderful phenomenon a life-changing hack?
Much later.
Yes, but not for the better. Magic stick for the win. It only took me 7 out of 8 tubes to find a method that actually worked. Without anger attack, throwing stuff around the room, that I was speaking about a friend. If none of the above was working, this method actually is foolproof and involves first sewing the outer tube, good side on the good side, turning it around. I used the cord method, but without the filling it's much easier. So I'm sure you can use a safety pin too. Then folding the filling and stitch over it, and use a safety pin to insert it into the yellow tube. So much easier. And believe me, having the filling separate separated from the outer fabric is gonna be very beneficial. And the other way around. Spoiler alert, drama ahead. For the next portion of the video, my microphone was not functioning, which in hindsight might have been a sign that all the following swearing would have not really benefited the video anyway. We're gonna sew a standard zipper pouch, the exact same as the leather pouch I did last week. I'm gonna use the dark blue fabric as the lining. I'm gonna cut 2 squares for the outer fabric, the exact same 2 squares for the lining. As for the size, you want your tube to cover the whole bag. Don't worry, I guesstimated wrong too. But because you can't cut fabric on, better guesstimate it too big. Hot it! To make the bag a little more sturdy, more like vegan leather, I want to reinforce the outer fabric with iron-on interfacing, which yours truly for no good reason didn't really do. I'm gonna reuse the zipper from the front of the jacket, which only took me like 25 minutes to get out. Hashtag slow.
Old-fashioned.
Dropping the zipper at the same width as the pouch. You do not want to use a zipper that is too chunky for this sewing method. Okay, sandwich time. Outer fabric, good side facing upward. Line the zipper up at the edge facing downwards. Then put the lining on top, good side facing downwards too. Close it with pins or clamps. The zipper is slightly open, so we can sew the first part without any problem. But when we come at the zipper tag, we want to stop sewing. Leave the needle in the fabric, lift the sewing foot up. Close the zipper towards the part where we've already sewn. Move it out of the way, so that we can continue our seam straightly with nothing in the way. There's only one thing that you do not want to do, which is this.
Oh, damn. It's nothing. It's stupid.
Yes, guys, I just pulled off the complete zipper tag. Just wanted to show what not to do. Really hard to get on when the zipper is cut open. Took a break and put it back on first before continuing my seam. That turned out pretty well though. For the other side, we're gonna repeat the exact same step. Outer fabric facing upwards, zipper facing downwards on top of it, and the lining facing downwards. There's only one thing what we're gonna do different. What is that? It's the zipper tag. Try to keep it on this time. Remember? Then I'm gonna do a top stitch on both sides, close to the edge, just to make it look all a little more flat and finished. Slightly pulling with my left hand on the outer fabric and the line to make sure that the lining underneath is not gonna be folded doing this. And then it should be perfectly lining up. Or we chop a little bit off and pretend. Fashion workers, are you thinking what I'm thinking? It is time to make the fries into curly fries. I would think maybe for 500 euro they would find some clever way to hide like the seams of the fries under each other if they're twisting anyway. Which you can totally do, but they didn't. It's all gonna come out of one seam. That's how the bag was made in the store. I think I'm gonna get a little bit of the filling in the end off, so that in the seam it will be not so thick.
Not so thick.
But it is a little more flat. Look, had I known then what I know now, the world, it wouldn't have been the same. All I want to say is thin the last centimeter of the tube out completely. Don't keep any filling in there. Don't matter how you do it, just cut it all away. So I started joining the fries in pairs of 2, but then I realized something was off. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an official curly fry gate. Like, this is how it looks with 2. So these are 3 fries, which is what we need, I think. That is gonna look better. Now what am I thinking, but probably wasn't thinking at all. Again, see if I can make one more fry. So 3 on top of each other instead of 2. So I want to sew them a little bit more apart, that they're a little bit wider, so that they cover the full side seam. Doesn't matter. Just do everything twice today. It's just the most basic braiding that I assume everybody knows, but in case you don't, left over right, right over left, and so on and so on. The only thing to really pay attention to is that all your braids are gonna have the same kind of tightness. Closing the ends the same way as the top, kind of stitching them half on top of each other. You might even want to fold it already. Stitch the ends of the one side to the end of the other side. This is now all a little bit very short because it's so chunky. It's the joy of upcycling, just not enough fabric. So we're just gonna do some creative tailoring, aka chopping a piece off to make it all fit, and nobody has to know. Is it all gonna come together, or is it all gonna fall apart like Twitter under Elon Musk? At this point I start to be a little bit like, uh-oh. I'd rather sew the braids in 2 steps. Wish me luck. First sewing them on one side of the fabric. This is something you probably shouldn't do. However, it's a little bit late to go back now. This was not good. My sewing machine did not want to take all these layers. Even sewing by hand, it was a painful process. probably should have thinned it out a lot more. It's just hanging on there a little temporary fixation so that we can hopefully close the seam a little more smoothly than this. At this point, I have nothing to lose. Now it's time to add the other side. Lining on the lining, the outer fabric on the outer fabric. Ooh la la, these French fries are thick, guys. Even with clips, it's hard to keep it all in place. I want to close all the edges, but in the lining, I want to keep a hole to be able to still turn it inside out. Make sure that the zipper is lined up really well, turning downwards towards the lining, and go slowly by hand to not break your needle on the zipper. I literally had to go in with some hand stitches and sew over it another time just to get the seam somewhat to close. Turn it inside out and see what we have. The bird of the bag. I'm a little bit groggy after this. Switch that around. Then I attach the braids to the bag with some hand stitches in every corner. Close the lining with some hand stitches. Bonus step! That I really did not want to have to do. But the side seam was so ugly that I needed something to cover it up. I just sewed a strap from the reflector fabric from the coat and attached it to the side of the bag. Maybe I should have braided it a little more tightly. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have any good ideas. If you have any ideas for future videos. Of course, don't forget to subscribe, educate yourself. Let this loose deliberately so that you have like a little handle kind of thing. Luckily, I am the most sensible person in the world. Don't know what the magic stick is, by the Oh my god, can someone tell me that I look like I have a big belly when I wear my thermal leggings? Never mind.